Welcome to the Bonafide Leaders Podcast with your host, Tim G. Williams. Let's get to it. Hello, Tim G. Williams, and welcome back to another episode of the Bonafide Leaders Podcast. Today, we are going to be talking about the 4 stages of every leader's growth journey. And so you sent me a few notes on what those stages are and what to look for in yourself and in others at each stage. So tell me what's going on with this. Tell me about this journey.
Yeah. Let's just have a conversation around it. I'll start with stage 1, and I love the way that you introduced it, which is that it's what to look for in yourself and in others. Because as leaders, that's our audience. It's never just about us. It's about us and the people that we're engaging with, our teammates, leaders above us, those around us, partners, collaborators. So it's both, right? We're looking for what's inside of us, but also what's happening with other people. So stage 1 is what I call the didn't even know stage. It's I didn't even know. We'll come back to it and expand a little bit more. The second stage of a leader's journey is really, I think I can. Think of the choo-choo train back in the day. I think I can, right? So that's stage 2. Stage 3 is I know I can. And then stage 4 is I'm not done. And so these 4 stages, I really believe every leader crosses one of these 4 paths at different points throughout their journey. And we can talk a little bit more about maybe age and stage, size of team people are leading in each of these, and see if we can just unpack it a little bit for the listener.
Okay, perfect. That's great. Okay, I wonder what stage I'm at. I was about to guess, and I was like, no, I just want to hear. I want to hear where you're at, and I'll try to go myself. Okay, so tell me about stage 1. Didn't even know.
Yeah.
Didn't even know what.
Well, for me, it was a situation where I didn't even know that I was developing as a leader. I didn't even know it. I was completely unaware that one, character was being built. There were life circumstances that were taking place. And from other leaders that I've talked to, this is the same kind of thing. I'll give you a good example. So most of us are familiar with Sheryl Sandberg, I think is the last name, prior COO of Facebook. I was at a leadership conference in which she was one of the keynote speakers. And the question was asked, when did you know you were a leader? And she really stumbled with the question. She took a while before she even answered the question. And then when she did, she says, I guess. So it was not confidently, but she says, I guess it was the time that I was working for Larry Summers, I think was the name. This was in a federal government related job. This was in her 20s. So after she had graduated college and obviously did very, very well in college and was now working, I think it was the Treasury Secretary Department or something like that. And that's when she believed that she knew at some point that she became a leader. But for most of us, we don't even know, like in those formative years, call it 11, 12, 13, 14 years old, all the way into maybe the first few years of our professional life. You just notice that all of a sudden you get asked to go tutor someone or go train someone, or when they're picking teams, they say, hey, before we pick teams, let's pick captains. And they ask you to be a captain of a team. And these are sort of the unexpected moments when you realize, okay, maybe something's happening, but you're definitely not visibly aware or emotionally aware of what's taking place. It could be that you're just an older sibling in a household where maybe there's multiple siblings and you're asked to sort of protect the house while mom or dad or both are gone. Or maybe you're a caretaker for someone who needs care at an early age. These kinds of skills, you don't even realize they're skills, but you're developing at that time. And that's forming the basis for what I would say is stage 1, the formative years of developing as a leader.
So it seems to me there's like almost 2 stages of that, where there's one where you are a leader and don't know, and then there's one where you're developing your leadership skills and you don't know. I wonder if there's some interplay there. But yeah, it's kind of, you have this leadership role, whether you recognize it or not, and then you need to develop those skills to learn how to be a good leader, because now you recognize you are a leader. That it kind of brings that up.
Right. The teacher in a class of other students may ask you to draw on the board for
Yeah.
example, and you being in front of your peers, you're not thinking of that when you're 11 years old as a leadership moment. It's just, if anything, you're just nervous or excited because you know something about the topic and you do it. And next thing you know, all of a sudden people start to ask you for help with your math or ask you for help with, English or, hey, how do you spell this word? And let's form a little group. My son, it was really funny. When he was in elementary school, he and this other group of kids who happened to be the kids who were, pretty smart, doing well in school and also, sort of athletic. And so they formed a little group that you had to sort of pass a test in order to get in the
Mm.
test. And I was always like, dude, are you excluding people from the group? Like they got to pass some kind of, hard third grade exam in order to be in your club. Is that what that's about? But even in that time, that group of boys was developing some leadership skills because people wanted to be a part of their group. And I found out later they pretty much invited everybody in who, did the little secret handshake or whatever it was. But yeah, these things they develop early, and sometimes we don't even realize that they're developing in us.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I think I've noticed myself the first time when people did start asking me a lot of questions. I like that you talked about that. Like, how did you do this, or what app do you use for this thing? And then I realized, like,
Exactly.
actually, I do know some things, but it took me a very long time of doing that before I realized, like, oh, I actually do know some things. So, anyway, that's great.
Exactly. Yeah, we're largely unaware that we know some things until people ask us for stuff, and it's like, oh, okay, it like clicks in the
Yeah,
brain.
because I think A, we enjoy it, or B, we're kind of naturally good at it, maybe is how we
Hmm.
kind of stumble into it. And so to us, it doesn't seem fantastical. It
Exactly.
doesn't seem difficult, but other people are like, man, that is so hard what you're doing. You on a
Exactly.
spreadsheet is probably just like a whiz. And I'm like, man, I cannot do that. That's great.
Whatever you think about my spreadsheet skills, just know that there's people I worked with who run circles
Mhm.
all around me. So yeah, I'm advanced, I guess you could say. And then there's
Mm,
super, super advanced. But yeah, we all have, different gifts and abilities that might come more naturally and easy for us, but might be more difficult for other people. And that's
that's
one of
right.
the ways that we develop those early stages of becoming a leader.
That's right. That's right. Okay, so stage 2 is now you've kind of recognized you're a leader, you are now recognizing that you're developing your
Hmm.
skills, and so you enter stage 2 of, "I think I can be
Yes.
a leader or develop my leadership skills." Tell me about that one.
Yeah, this one, and again, there's no perfect timeline. It can really, really vary, but just think about a normal distribution curve. I think I can lead phase really runs from the teenage years through probably about the first 5 to 7 years of our professional lives. And the I think I can phase kind of looks like this. It's fun because you realize for the first time that when you speak or when you are just having a conversation with people, people act on your words.
Mm,
And it's like, whoa.
mm,
It's almost like probably the first time I'm thinking of Spider-Man and he wakes up out of bed, Peter Parker, and all of a sudden he's got the ability with his web to like climb or, shoot string is like, wow. And now he wants to play with it some more. So it can be really, really fun stage because I tell you one thing that happened to me, which was just kind of crazy. I referenced a book. This was pretty early in my career, and I don't even remember what the book title was. And I had it on my desk because I thought it was a really, really good book and very useful. I didn't make a recommendation. I didn't strongly support anything. Next thing you know, there's like multiple people in the cube area with the same book on their desk. And then we would talk about it. And I think that's the really fun part about stage two when you think you can. So what else happens? You might begin volunteering for leadership assignments because now you've recognized people pay attention to what I have to say. I think I like to explore and just try some stuff. So you might even get involved in some leadership or volunteer activities that require some leadership. Um, in this stage is when I think you really begin to master the art of influencing without official authority or control. It's in this stage that if you master that, it enables us all to be able to move to level 3 or stage 3 and 4. And then the other thing that happens is you've now made a number of good decisions, and I have no way of calculating how many decisions we make as leaders on a daily or weekly or monthly basis. But you've built up enough um, I guess, practice at making decisions, that you're more and more comfortable making decisions, not just for yourself, but on behalf of other people. That's really the stage two.
Okay, so on that note, is there a stage 2.5 where you think, "I definitely cannot do this?" You know? You start to get these, let's say, like, larger assignments, you start making big
Hmm.
decisions, and then you maybe make some mistakes, or you start, the Peter principle, you start rising to that
Yes.
level of incompetence, and you're like, "Man, I'm having a dark night of the
Yes.
soul. I don't think I'm any good at this." Does that is
Sure.
that a stage in your mind?
I think so. I think so. There was one particular moment, and we didn't script this, so it's funny that you asked this. There was a particular moment when I was asked to be on what we had at the time was the global finance diversity team. Back then it wasn't diversity and inclusion or DEI. It was just the diversity team. And that was cool. I was looking forward to it because it was something outside of my day job. And the person I was backfilling was someone I really, really respected, was a mentor. And so I was excited about the opportunity. That's the one part. But then the other part, to address your question, was when I got in the room and I looked around at all of these senior people. And then we were doing, I don't know what you would call this, not exactly a brainstorming exercise, but it was an exercise where we were trying to figure out, hey, what do we want to focus on this year as a diversity team? And this diversity council consisted of our CFO, the treasurer of the company, the head of audits. So basically what we called our finance leadership team, those top people, plus a number of their direct reports. And then what I'll call the peons like me,
Hmm.
people who were individual contributors who really hadn't done much in the company. But for me, it was an opportunity just to be in the room and just hear what people are talking about. It was a topic I thought I could just learn from and maybe add a little bit of value. The CFO, in the middle of this, 20, 25 people in the room, we're trying to figure out this team. I think we called it the education and the awareness team. That was going to be our theme for the year. And then the CFO looks at me and he says, I think you should lead it. And the light
Uh,
bulbs and the scariness, right? Everything just begins to flood up. My heart starts to race, and I'm thinking, how in the world can I do this? That's not possible. I just joined the bigger finance diversity team. I can't like lead a team. So yes, there is a stage that we go through where it's like fear and doubt
mm,
and disbelief that we were asked to do such a large task, and yet um, because it was the CFO, I didn't feel like I really had a choice when he sort of asked or made a suggestion. I did it, and it worked out. And so I think for all of us, there's something that we can learn from that, which is that sometimes the things that seem absolutely tough, we can't do them. Sometimes we can with the right level of support. And in that
mm,
instance, I felt like I had at least the verbal support as to, the senior leader as to what he was given to me at that time, and that helps, quite a bit, I think.
mm. So you were voluntold, and it turned out all right because you had some support, which is great.
Volunteer, and
That's
then I had
good.
a great team
Good,
of
yeah.
people who were already experienced on that particular diversity team who could lend support and a hand, and they were engaged too. There's nothing like, leading a team of people who are competent and who are engaged and want to help and want to be a part of the solution. That makes the role of a team leader. I mean, even though I was the team leader, how much hard, heavy lifting did I have to do? I'm not sure. Set up the meetings every month and then just get people together. We just make it happen. But the team was outstanding. And then I had a little bit of support as well, verbally at the outset of that project. That really helped.
That's so important when you're going through those trials or those new assignments and taking on new responsibilities. That's really key. I'm still in meetings occasionally in the room, and I'm like, "What am I doing here? Why am I here? Like, how did I get into this room?" So
Yeah.
that's really encouraging.
Just a quick note
Okay.
on that
Yeah.
is something our pastor would say is we should never stop having those feelings.
Mm. Okay.
Meaning that if we're always the smartest person in the room,
Mm.
um, we need to question whether or not we're truly growing ourselves as well.
Yeah,
And
amen. I
that's
like that.
pretty powerful. It's a really good reminder that really there's no age, there's no limit, there's no time in life when we should stop growing. And the moment when we get in a room and we're always the person of wisdom, and it's just people taking our sage insights, that might be a time for us to look up and say, oh, what's going on here? you know.
I like that.
So I think it's okay for us to be in those rooms sometimes where we feel intimidated or that we don't belong. I think that's a good thing.
That's great. That's great. Be always a little uncomfortable. I like that.
I think so.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you realize you're a leader, realizing
Yeah.
you're developing these skills, and then you get these new responsibilities. You think, I think I can do this. And then you
Yep.
move into stage 3 of I know I can do this. Tell me about that
Yep.
one.
Yeah. I know it can is typically going to be between the ages of our 30s, probably early 30s, and through our 50s at some point for most of us. And in this stage, when we say, I know I can lead, we've developed a track record, one that's um, one that can't be doubted, one that we can look back on and say, yep, here were some major milestones. Here were some real challenges. Here's were some difficult teams that I was a part of. Here was one functional team that I led. And this was another functional team. This was a team in a civic area. This was a team in some other volunteer capacity where people didn't have to follow me. We can look back and we can say, man, I've done it and I'm excited about this journey that I'm on. And so, yeah, knowing you could do it is the belief that in the actions that have happened in the past to say, yeah, I've demonstrated my ability. So, what I would just say for this one is we've got to stay humble when we're in the
Mm.
stage 3 phase, and we've got to keep listening. That's the warning. Is there's a tendency now that we've seen our results, if you will, to say, I got this. And sometimes we don't got this. Um, and sometimes it's important to make sure that we still listen to other people, having that inner circle of folks who can tell us. So a lot of times our family can be that for us. You know, when I come through the doors in this house, I'm just Tip. And I think for every leader, that's a real good thing so that we continue to stay grounded as to, what we are, who we are. The other thing I would say is that um, about this phase is that I think we begin to visualize success happening. That's what changes from stage 2 to stage 3 is that now when there's a idea or a problem or some challenge, we actually can visualize the pieces coming together. We can visualize team members. We can visualize how we're going to communicate, mobilizing people to go make it happen. And that's a big shift that happens from stage 2 to stage 3. There was something else I was going to say. Yeah, it's it's having greater confidence in leading in times of uncertainty. That's also a big difference from stage 2 to stage 3. Stage 2, I don't know how comfortable we are leading in uncertainty, but stage 3, we have a greater confidence and comfort, recognizing that, you know what, along the way, at best, if you listen to Colin Powell, you might get 40 to 70% of all the available information you really need
Mm.
to make the best decision. And once you get to 40% or 50%, if you don't move at that point, what Colin Powell would say, which I completely agree with, is that now you've missed the target. You're too late. And so stage 3, I think we discover that not having all the information is okay. The other thing, or the last thing I would say about this stage is that we're now intentionally mentoring and developing other people. We're pouring into the next generation. Whereas in stage 2, I think it's still primarily about us, although we're making positive actions on behalf of other people. Our lens is kind of focused on how what we're doing is impacting other people. Whereas in stage 3, it's all about understanding the global macro, our impact on other people, on other organizations, on other teams. And it's just a staple of how we think.
This resonates with me because I think I'm at the very beginnings of this stage here where I have had a track record. I'm starting a company and
Hmm.
I'm hiring full-time employees for the first time. I can start to plot out and project in the future. So
Yeah.
this is really helpful. Yeah. So early 30s, that totally makes sense where a lot of people are in their careers. They're starting to take on more responsibilities. They've got a little track record, got a little cred,
Yep.
and now
Yep.
they need to plan for the next 5, 10 years. What am I going to do with my career?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. So that's stage 3 of, I really believe every leader's journey. Stage 1 is really, I didn't even know. Stage 2
Mm,
is, I think I can, right? The little engine that could. And then stage 3 is, I know I can. However, I got to make sure I stay humble and listen to other people
Mm,
because sometimes I don't got it.
mm. Yeah, stage 4 is I'm not done. What is I'm not done?
Yes. So the I'm not done phase is characterized by, on one side, a tendency to say, I'm retired. I'm out of the game. I'm no longer in that full time role where I had, dozens or hundreds of people reporting into the same organization. Um, and so therefore people can have a tendency to check out. And that's the warning I would offer is actually at that point in our life, we've accumulated so much experience that the world vastly needs that it's really important that we stay in the game. And so it's a shift from I'm out of the game, I'm retired to, oh, I'm not done. I'm just beginning a new phase where really most of my energy is now directed at how I can impact other people in a positive way in their leadership journey. So it's very others focused. Three, the perception, right? From stage 2 to stage 3, the mindset shift. Stage 2 is still kind of more, self-absorbed. Stage 3 is more others absorbed and understanding how your impact hits other people and other organizations. Stage 4 is you are really seeking in every instance to support, help, develop other people. And that's now what satisfies you. That's now what brings you gratification. Um, Now you've been in a lot of different situations. You've been on boards, you've led in business, you've led in nonprofits, you've led in very unclear situations. You've coached all varieties of educational backgrounds, uh, genders, ethnicities, etc. And now the problems that you're asked to go solve are what I call global problems. That doesn't mean that we're talking about problems with water in Tanzania. You could, but really when I say global, I'm talking about those problems that are just very, very difficult to get our arms wrapped around. Maybe a really challenging leadership situation. Maybe a business that just cannot get over the hump. Maybe it's a place where others say, oh, I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole. But you recognizing the abilities you have and others recognizing that in you, the diversity of leadership experiences, those are the kinds of problems you're asked to go solve. And while you're doing it, you're constantly looking out for who you can mentor and develop and pour into and coach throughout that journey. So it is truly the I'm not done phase of the leadership journey. And that journey will run sometime for most of us in our 50s and to the time that we leave this earth.
Hmm. Do you have any thoughts on maybe how that takes shape in somebody's life? And I guess what I'm getting at is I'm imagining there's a listener who, let's say maybe they weren't a Fortune 500 CEO or anything like that, but they
Yeah.
were, very, very high level executive or a business owner for a very long time and have all this experience like you described, but now we're trying to say like, what do I do now? Or what's my
Yeah.
legacy? Maybe I'm done with this, certain part of my professional career. I have a pension or I'm leaving this track, but starting a new
Yep.
track, and I want to be a consultant or a writer or a coach. Or how does
Sure.
that take shape in somebody's life when they get to that stage?
There's a number of people who are I'm friends with, or I'm cordial with, or they're acquaintances, people I work with who have recently retired.
Hmm.
And so there's advice that they give, and you hear lots of different things. But one of the pieces of advice is you got to manage your time actually even more so once you
Hmm.
become retired, if you will, than before. Reason being is that when you're on a job, your time is sort of taken care of by the company that you're working for. You know the priorities and stuff you got to get done. And once you're out of that, you can really kind of do whatever you want. And so because of that, it's easy to just be saying yes to just any new thing that comes along. Buddies want to go golf, 3 days a week, you'll go do that. And then all of a sudden somebody says, hey, join this board. You're like, oh, okay, I'll go do that. Oh, somebody says volunteer over here at the church. Okay, sure, I'll do that. Next thing you know, you look up, this is what I've heard from a lot of recent retirees. They're busier than they were before. And so I think it's being intentional about the extra time that you have and carving that time out to your point, authoring, right? Maybe it's time to get a book going. Maybe it's time, if you're part of a ministry, a church, a religious organization, start mentoring or discipling, if you will, a group of people that you're going to walk with them for the next 12 months or 6 months, and then hopefully send them off and so that they can repeat the cycle. It's about saying, hey, I'm going to join two boards. Maybe one of them is going to be for nonprofit purposes, something that I really care a lot about. And then maybe one of them is going to be in a for profit situation. I think these are the ways that we can begin to be intentional about our time so that in that stage 4, we're not just overwhelmed with just a bunch of activities, but they're purposeful towards a greater mission that I think can build some significant fulfillment, particularly in a place where sometimes when we're at that age, maybe you feel less useful because you're not in a day job. But just this week, I had a conversation with a man who's 64 years old, and it was just such a rich conversation because there's such a good exchange, meaning it's not just me seeking his advice, but he's actually learning from me on some stuff I'm learning about in this new social media, digital marketing world, metrics, what's important to track. Hey, how do you monetize this business or that business? Because they've not had to think about that. And so there's just so much value that can come in that stage that we just can't quit. We have to keep it going, and we still got a lot more to give.
I had never thought of what you just said, but I can totally see that happening where all these opportunities come up and you want to take all of them. And then now you're even
Sure.
worse off. That makes a lot of sense. So, okay. So you mentioned what to look for in yourself and in others at each stage. As kind of the final note here, is there any closing thoughts on these different stages and kind of how to move through them and do that well?
Yeah, I would just say this. These stages don't last forever. They're periodic, like most things in life. And just remember to master and enjoy each stage. As I said that, I just thought about a mentor of mine when she was asked the question, what's the best age and stage for parenting? And her answer was always each one. Each one is special and unique. Diapers is a lot of work. It's still special when you get to like toddler age and you start to look back at diaper stage. And then when they're in the toddler age, you're thinking, man, stop saying no. Get your hands out of that. But then you get to about 9, 10, 11, and they're just so sweet and compliant, et cetera, et cetera. So enjoy every stage. Stage 3, I think, tends to be the longest because that's really a range of maybe even 30 years from, our early 30s to our late 50s. And it's just about continuously uh, building right on the art and the science of leadership. And then it's beginning that process of starting to invest intentional time in mentoring and developing other people. And then stage 2, just a lot of fun. And I would just say that as we recognize that people are responding to us, we can't treat people like I was guilty of treating people like our robotic experiments. There was a time early in leading where I was just soaking up all this great, knowledge, books from John Maxwell and John Wooden and, MLK and all this stuff that I was soaking up. And every time I get a new leadership nugget, I go pour it into the team and experiment and see how they responded. People are not lab rats. And fortunately, I had an employee who was a very straight shooter who was willing to tell me, Tim, your style is kind of robotic. And that was so good to hear. I didn't like it at the time, but it was such good feedback because in stage 2, you can sort of, be almost like the puppet master because you can see people just respond to you. We got to be careful not to do that and to make sure that everything that we do is still desiring to benefit the team, the organization, and not just for ourselves.
That's great. Stage 2, you're still trying to figure out who you are, how you fit, your
I think so.
method of leadership. Yeah, that makes sense.
Exactly.
That's great. That's great. Well, Tim, this is great. 4 stages of every leader's growth journey. Extremely helpful, and I can now find my place. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. My pleasure, Brandon.
All right, we'll see you next episode.